as every scientist will tell you, all we've got in this world is energy and matter. Energy and material. Now, I'm a simple country chemist, and so I'm going to tell you that not only is everything we have in this world energy and matter, but everything we see, touch, and feel is a chemical. Everything you buy, everything you encounter, every electronic, everything you wear, it's all a chemical. That includes all of the materials that are used to generate, store, and transport our energy. It's all a chemical. Everything around you, every day, it's all a chemical. And yes, you are a chemical. And so it's funny because when I often get asked, especially when I was a young student, whatever drove you to become a chemist? And I'd say, how could I not? When I realized that everything is a chemical, and that chemistry has figured out how to transform one thing into another, and not only that, how to introduce new things into the world that never existed before. As an aspiring megalomaniac, how could you say no to that kind of power? So I became a chemist. And I wanted to try to do good things. I went into medicinal chemistry, doing anti-cancer research. And so went along thinking about all of the miracles of chemistry. The medicines that extend life and improve quality of life. The chemicals that allow communication and space travel and on and on. I started asking myself, okay, how do we get all of these innovations? How do we get all of these inventions and discoveries? That's when I realized we do a lot of the right things wrong. What is doing right things the wrong way? Well, in addition to all of that discovery, there's a lot of unintended consequences. So, yeah, you could say, brilliant invention, technological miracle, check. Unintended consequences, check. Oh my. So, a couple of examples of that. Disinfecting water saves millions of lives every day. Right thing. Doing it with acutely lethal chlorine that was discovered and implemented as a chemical warfare agent, that's doing it the wrong way. Making greater and greater efficiency of food production, right thing. Doing it with toxic, persistent, bioaccumulating pesticides, wrong way. Developing life-saving medicines to treat all kinds of diseases, right thing. Doing it in ways that generate 10 times, sometimes 100 times the amount of waste versus the product, wrong thing. So, generating more and more efficient energy, right thing. Doing it so that we spew CO2, changing the only climate we have, and causing all of these unintended consequences to the planet. Wrong way. So this caused me to pause and say, while I want to do chemistry and invent things, I want to change the way that we do it. I had so much love and respect for chemistry that I knew we could tap into the same creative brilliance that had this long history of innovation and do it without all of the harm, without all of the waste, without all of the unintended consequences. And that brought me on my path toward green chemistry. Green chemistry is this way of getting all of the good without all of the negative consequences. And I can best explain it by, imagine if instead of using acutely lethal things like cyanide and chlorine and phosgene in order to make all of our products, You can make it with things like carbohydrates or table sugar. Imagine if you could transform one of our biggest problems, CO2, into valuable products. Imagine if you could take things like agricultural waste and food waste and turn it into, not waste, but instead use waste to make valuable products. Now imagine that you're not imagining. That's what green chemistry has been doing for the last 25 years. 25 years ago, folks had asked an audacious question. The audacious question is, can we actually change the material basis of our society and our economy so that it is genuinely sustainable and beneficial to people, prosperity, and the planet? So, a few of those examples of green chemistry looking at new innovations in a different way include taking things like timber waste and even food waste and agricultural waste and transforming those wastes into a variety of biodegradable, healthful polymers and high-performance polymers and specialty ingredients in our consumer products. Waste into benign products. Another wonderful example is instead of putting CO2 into the atmosphere in gigatons, capturing that CO2, transforming that CO2 into things like carbon neutral aviation fuels, things like building blocks, building materials that sequester and contain that carbon so it never makes its way into our atmosphere. These aren't science fiction, this is science reality that green chemistry has turned into from the impossible into the possible, and from the possible into the practical. Now, all of these examples, and I could go on for days talking about them, all of these examples are still the exception to the rule. What we need to do is now turn these possible practical solutions into things that are profitable and at scale in order to actually make a difference in people's lives across the globe. And in order to do that, we need the same innovation that has transformed the way that we generate our materials and our energy. We need that same creativity brought to our business and economic models. We need that same transformation to take place in our business and economic models, because when we recognize that our resources that we use can only have value when we destroy and deplete them in the marketplace, that shows that our business and economic models are broken and in need of reinvention. When our economic models are saying that the cleanup of avoidable waste and preventable pollution is a positive economic contribution to our gross domestic product, that means that our economic and business models are broken and in need of reinvention. When we spend countless billions treating preventable diseases, that means that our business and economic models are broken and in need of reinvention. When our policies and economic frameworks give more of society's benefits to the greedy than to the needy, that means that our business and economic models are broken and need to be reinvented. In other words, when so-called good business sense makes no common sense, we need to reinvent our models that we're using in the way that we judge, in the way that we drive, in the way that we invest our inventions. Because that audacious question that was asked 25 years ago, can we reinvent the material and energy basis so that it's sustainable? It's been asked and answered, and the answer is yes. Now the question is, will we? It is a matter of will. I believe we will because we can, and I believe we will because we must. But I have a confession to make. The confession is that at the beginning of this talk, I told you that all we had was energy and matter. On that journey, I found out I lied. Because while we have energy and matter, we also have justice, morals, ethics, creativity, innovation, and most of all, the love for our children and their future.